Before we get to our show, here is a podcast we think you're going to love.
Did they botch the investigation of a serial killer because of prejudice inside the force?
They're catching images of what they believe are ghosts on surveillance cameras.
The victims there were vulnerable women, many indigenous.
The world is a lot.
It really is. That's why we started our podcast, Sick Sad World.
I am Jasmine, and this is my co-host Mari. And we host a bi-weekly podcast on all things macabre.
We cover anything from serial killers to cults to alien conspiracies to ghost stories and so much more.
We are childhood friends, and we're both passionate about social justice.
We'll discuss how these things intersect with racism, sexism, ableism, and queermisia.
We both have unique perspectives coming from marginalized identities. Me as a black cis woman, and Mari as a disabled trans person.
We offer the kinds of conversations we felt were missing in true crime and horror.
And we're hoping you'll join the conversation too.
So check out Sick Sad World. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and pretty much wherever you can find your podcasts.
Hello and welcome. Perhaps it's you. My name is Liz, and a certain deadbeat named Samantha couldn't be here today. Her laziness has been dragging down this podcast for too long. I can finally say it. So we had to go to the benches, drag in a volunteer.
Yeah.
Hi, Mac.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today when a certain someone who won't be named couldn't be bothered.
You didn't want to go with the original plan that I would just pretend to be Samantha and
see if anyone noticed.
Yeah.
And then once people were like, that's clearly not Samantha, be like, I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know why you would accuse me of lying like that.
That's so rude. Yeah. How about you never listen to the podcast again? And then we really do go back to 5 listeners.
Well,
maybe that's how it's meant to be. Hello, 5 listeners. I haven't greeted you individually in a while, or in groups of 5. But it's good. It's good to talk to you. We're here with the Pod Dogs. You might hear Lenny and Curtis jangling around. Mac, is there anything you would like to say to the listeners before we get started? I do have a quick update, actually.
No, I was thinking about this podcast and...
what a deadbeat Samantha is? How she couldn't be bothered to be here?
No, obviously she does most of the work on this. But...
what, you mean driving here, preparing what she's going to say, doing the editing...
Yeah.
Uploading the actual episode.
The audio quality I have a problem with, and that's...
Wow.
It's not really a podcast because you don't have one person that is about 10 times as loud as the other person. And that it sounds like they might be in a bathroom somewhere or calling from a, like, you don't have that disparity that really marks a podcast.
That's how you're like, oh, a podcast.
I'm listening to a podcast because I can almost hear one person and I can barely stand to hear the other. And that's
what if I talked into like an old tin can? That
might help, yeah.
Just started to give it that je ne sais quoi of authenticity.
Yeah. Oh, hey guys, it's the Perhaps It's You podcast. Welcome. How's it going, Liz? Oh, it's going great. It's going great. What are we watching today?
Yeah, where you like don't even know where you are, and then you just talk about LA traffic for a good 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, God, I want to hear about LA traffic.
Okay, to be fair, we almost always talk about Minnesota weather, but
well, that's different. No, I just want to, like, what's going on in La Cienega, right?
Yeah. A place
Did you take the
never
101
been.
here? Are you out of your mind?
Like, you know that you've literally never been to California.
Well, you know, it's an important, it's part of life in America.
It's part of life.
It's part of podcast life.
Other people's commuting experiences. Yeah. If you had a podcast, what do you think it would be about?
Probably a review of other podcasts. It would
okay.
It would be the podcast about podcasting.
I could kind of see
Actually, those already exist. They
do. Yeah. I don't know who listens to them.
I don't know.
I am sorry I just said that, but it's also kind of true, right?
Well, but it's not even like...
the podcast of podcasts of podcasts. It gets like so inner circle in a way.
I mean, there's podcasts about making a podcast, which seems...
That's kind of helpful, I guess.
Maybe.
I can't say I ever listened to one. We watched 2.5 YouTube videos before starting this podcast, and that seemed to be fine.
Might be the format you want, since
seemed to work.
Just describing what to do with.
We're
the mixing
already
board
the number 1 podcast on iTunes, according to me. So
that's good. That's neat.
I could see you doing a news radio by which I mean the TV show rewatch podcast. Actually, I would really like you to do that.
Yeah. Be like, this is the one where they do the baseball thing. And
I think you would make it a little better than that.
Yep. There's Dave Foley.
Turned out that guy was a creep.
Well,
but man, oh man, was he cute.
Seemed to...
He's so funny. God.
Yeah.
So that's not a new project for you. I would really like to encourage our friends, Josette and Justin, to start a 90210 podcast they've been talking about because I want to listen to it. So they need to make it. That's my demand.
90210-2019. That would be my suggestion for a name.
Why?
Because it's 2019.
Oh, okay. But what if they keep doing it?
Well,
that's your problem.
Better stop.
So, who cares? Okay. Well, this definitely changes the vibe of this podcast. One of the hosts not being here, and it's a little different.
Sorry. Yeah.
I don't know. I thought Samantha was very mellow, but you have an even more mellow vibe.
Bringing the energy way down.
But this will be a treat for everyone when we had you as a guest who said they had a voice crush on you.
Oh, wow.
So really,
Get
we're
ready.
giving the people what they want, which is clearly not something I've ever prided myself on this podcast. But for once, I heard you, and I'm delivering.
Yeah, it's definitely a choice, and not that I was the only person
that lives in the
house. And it's definitely a
Samantha couldn't be here
plan.
today. She apologizes. So yeah, we recruited Mac, and no, people liked it when you were on. So it's not an act of total desperation. It is a listening to my audience and responding in kind. A thing I never do because I'm constantly screaming that people aren't allowed to listen anymore.
Yeah, well, it's just convenient that this was the turn of events that happened here. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I do have an update, which you may enjoy because this involves someone you know. This is friend of the pod, Angela, aka perhaps the coolest person I've ever met. She got back when I was talking about my trip to New Orleans. I could not, for the life of me, in that moment, remember the name of this very haunted, historically cursed mansion. That is the La Laurie mansion. Named for Madame Lalaurie, who was the horrible murderer.
Sure.
Okay. Who killed a bunch of her slaves in extremely heinous ways and tortured people and was disgusting. Just a little quick reminder, this is this house no one wants, and supposedly if you touch it or if you walk under the sort of balcony part on the sidewalk, you're supposedly cursed.
Right.
Because everybody fucking hates this house.
Yeah.
So, friend of the pod, Angela, wrote in to say that her first time she went to New Orleans, her and a friend were exploring the French Quarter, and they walked by what she didn't know at the time was the La Laurie mansion, and blacked out.
Damn.
She said that she felt a coldness move up her spine, and then a tugging on the back of her head, and that according to her friend, she just crumbled.
That must have been terrifying.
That she was completely fine before and immediately after.
Wow.
So she got up. She was like, "Hey, I'm here to have a good time. Let's just ignore that.
Let's pretend that didn't happen.
Well, that night,
move on.
They go on a ghost tour.
They find out.
The tour guide says, "Hey, watch out for the people you're with. People are known to black out in front of this house." But she did not know that when that happened, and she didn't even know this place. She didn't know anything about it. No. It's just a building to her.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
That is wild.
When I met Angela, she was literally working for a coroner's office and in her spare time ghost hunting. And then I kind of tried to force her to be my friend, because...
Yeah, I was there. I remember.
Yeah, I know. That was for our audience.
Oh, sorry.
Mac, our loyal listeners.
Yeah, no, I know. You're not actually talking to me.
Oh, my God. Anyway, Angela's too cool for me, but I do really appreciate this story. If anybody else has stories about this mansion or other spooky New Orleans things, definitely send them in. That's perhaps it's you podcast@gmail.com. I want your spooky stories. Give them to me.
That's very interesting and then
terrifying, right?
Yeah.
I did not walk under the gallery of that house.
So if you go there at Mardi Gras, is it like jammed wall to wall with people except for that little area?
I mean, I'm
assuming
assuming so many people come into town for Mardi Gras that are not native to the area that they wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe there's sort of like a patch And then people are like, oh, great, look, there's a spot.
There's a spot. We'll go set up our chairs right there.
They're fucking cursed. Angela, I really hope you're not cursed. I hope you were there just briefly enough that...
Yeah.
You blacked out.
She had the blacking out. Yeah, that seems like like one of the effects.
One of the effects of the curse.
Well, not of the curse, but like you get cursed or you black out or it does things.
It almost makes me wonder if it has some sort of, I don't know, some sort of scientific explanation for.
Yeah,
could there be
big chunk of like magnetic material underneath?
Is there like a magnetic vibration or something just very unsettling like right by there that could explain that? But it's fucking weird.
That is weird.
Okay, moving on.
Well, but Angela, it's good to hear from you, and please say hello to David for me.
Yeah. Mac, please don't use this podcast for your own personal purposes like I do all the time. Thank you.
Apologies.
We're here today to talk about, I'm not sure if you've even mentioned this yet, but the show's called Perhaps It's You, and this is an Unsolved Mysteries rewatch podcast.
What?
Yep. Sorry, that's why you're here.
Huh.
I know. Weird, right?
It's all ready to talk about the Outer Limits. I thought we were...
I don't really know anything about the Outer Limits.
It's the one that opens with like your TV is not malfunctioning.
Is it just a ripoff of the Twilight Zone?
It's pretty similar, yeah.
Now I kind of want to watch it. Okay, so this is an Outer Limits rewatch podcast, but we're taking a break from format today, and we're going to be talking about Unsolved Mysteries. And we are on Season 3, Episode 16, I do believe. And before we get started, it's sort of a solid episode. I liked this one. Mac's going to go first because I felt like this was a very Mac mystery. We start off with a wanted bank robbery case from 1987. Ronald Reagan masks are involved.
Yeah, this is the Ballad of Patrick Michael Mitchell.
Mac's new hero.
Well, and reading this roundup here, they seem to have left out a major part because Patrick Mitchell was Canadian, and in Canada he was the leader of the infamous Stopwatch Gang. And
what does that mean?
I don't know. They gave us no context about that on the show. Stopwatch Gang. And they didn't. They just said at one point that he's Canadian. He might have gone back to Canada, but spoiler alert. But yeah, no. Apparently he was living it up, being in charge of the gang in Canada, and then moved down to the U.S. to rob banks there.
This dude is like 80s handsome. Fucking looks like Kenny Loggins.
A very Kenny Loggins vibe, yes.
Half of the pictures they show of him are shirtless, which I don't recall ever seeing before. He's got like, who is that guy on TV that sells cleaning stuff that has a beard?
The guy who died?
I don't know, maybe.
The, Billy Blanks?
Yes! Yeah. He reminds me of him.
Yeah. Did I tell you?
How did he die?
I think he had a heart attack or something.
He didn't eat the
he ate OxyClean.
Oh, that's what it is, OxyClean.
Yeah, no, he took it was a bet, and he ate a big
another victim of the Tide Pod challenge.
Well, he was ahead of his time in that way. No, but I used to work at O'Hare Airport, and he I was a bartender, and I was on my break, and I came back, and one of the other bartenders came up and said, "You're never gonna guess who was in here." And I said, Who was it? And I was like, the guy from the OxyClean commercial.
You were like hoping it was someone actually cool.
I was just sort of curious, I was like,
you were like,
neat.
Kenny Loggins, and they were like, no, it was Billy Banks.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. What was he like? And he was like, he's kind of an asshole. And maybe I should. I didn't sign any agreements or anything.
Yeah,
but
it's out in the open now.
He was very upset that he was not allowed to bring his like glass. He had ordered a beer and he wanted to take it to the gate, which you are allowed to do. You just have to pour it into a plastic cup, but.
He thought he got to walk around O'Hare Airport with glassware, and he was mad about that.
I mean, he is the spokesman for OxyClean, or was.
That's not how airports work.
Yeah, well,
any of them. What? Mac also has a great story about working at the airport. The once Wolfgang Puck came into his own restaurant. You know how every airport I feel like has a Wolfgang Puck restaurant in it? Maybe not anymore, but at the time.
Yeah, Wolfgang Puck came to the Wolfgang Puck Cafe and sat down at the bar, and one of the other bartenders served him. And I looked at the guy. He's kind of just a German guy, you know. He's shorter and
loves goat cheese on pizza.
Yeah,
man,
just
oh man,
can't stop. But he sat down. And I was like, is that really? That's weird. Why would he come to his own?
Where else is he gonna go, man?
I mean,
you thought he'd be in like a first class lounge, like a normal rich person?
But
no,
they don't have food in those at most of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it would, if he wanted something to eat, he was gonna need to go to a restaurant. And you know, I mean, I guess he had a hand in coming up with the rest, but he was very unfamiliar with the menu.
That's what I find hilarious is he tried to order food that they like don't have, and it's like, dude, I realize there's a ton of he maybe had never even been there before. There's a lot of things with his name on it.
Yeah.
But he tried to like order soup they don't even have, and it's like,
yeah, he wanted the pumpkin soup, and we had butternut squash soup. We knew what he meant, but it was just sort of like, oh, okay, clearly you had literally nothing to do with this. This whole concept.
I feel like Gordon Ramsay would yell about that, even though I'm sure he would do the same thing.
But the fun thing was that the woman who did serve him, she didn't know who he was at all, and like just she was good, you know, she was fine.
But she wasn't like sucking up to him.
No, not at all. She was just like, oh, thanks for coming, you know, and then everybody's kind of like peering over the
so funny
the service area, like looking out at Wolfgang Puck sitting at the table and or at the bar, and then he gets up and leaves and pays and everything. And
do you think he was kind of mad he had to pay at his own restaurant?
I mean, I imagine he understands that some faceless corporation owns that, right? Like it has nothing to do with him. I would have thought the manager would have gone by. Maybe he did. I don't really remember. But then finally after he left, we told the bartender, like, you know, that's Wolfgang Puck. Like you work in, that's his name on the menu. And she was horribly embarrassed. But, you know, it probably was better that she didn't know because I think she would have been very nervous.
And she just clearly didn't buy that soup that used to have his face on it. That's the only reason.
Yeah, that's how I recognized him on it. Yeah, it was from the label. The label on canned soup.
Label guy.
Yeah, that's the Campbell Soup kid came in and
no, we are talking about a bank robbery.
Yeah.
Done by a Canadian with a very full beard. Not like full bushy, like full like dense.
Yeah, no, I would. I mean, if you don't know what Kenny Loggins looks like, I would look it up because he's got a very.
If you don't know what Kenny Loggins.
Well, that's just worth knowing in general.
Exactly, it's just.
This guy has a soft
advice.
rock vibe for sure, right? Like he could be hosting one of those Time Life things. Like
according
remember
to
the soft hits of the 70s?
Yeah, by the fireplace where he's like, finally they're all in one place.
Yeah, like
on
Sailing
one CD
by Christopher Cross, and
The FBI agent did inform us that he considered himself a bit of a ladies' man.
That FBI agent was like a moron. That guy seemed like. He's like, well, he was taking this medicine to seem younger, and like, what a yokel! I kind of thought I knew the FBI was a bunch of like, you know, Boy Scout kind of guys and stuff, but this guy really made me wonder. Like,
you know how you say people are like sharp as a tack? Yeah, he's like the opposite of that.
Yeah, he seemed like a dim fellow, but
he also was considered himself a gourmet cook.
Well, then that brings us back to. I'm going to talk a little more about Wolfgang Puck for a while if you don't know why. Yeah, no, he
80s gourmet is Wolfgang Puck, so it all makes sense. It's like that
silver palette cookbook, right? Isn't that a big?
Yes, yes. Who? Let me know if you have that hanging around. I think we do.
I think we've got one. Yeah.
It might not have made it with us in the last move.
But anyway, so yeah. Patrick Mitchell here is he's apparently a master of disguise. He keeps changing his identity. They said that he had 25 aliases, and he
so many aliases.
He and a couple guys. He's in prison, so let's be honest, he's not that good because he did get caught.
If he was really that good, the FBI would have no idea who he was.
And sent to prison, right? And so he breaks out of prison and.
Robert Sachs tells us that he changes identities like most men change shirts.
Right.
I guess men really only do have like 25 shirts, so fair enough.
Yeah. And that does sort of imply once a day, unless he's
Right.
like going through some stuff
Which,
or something.
I bet Robert Stack changed shirts like a couple times a day.
Definitely while he was shooting these little intros, because he, had to walk down the stairs wearing one shirt and then...
He wanted us to show like a whole Gentleman of Leisure catalog, a variety of looks.
So anyway, they're in prison, and it didn't seem like the most, they call it a daring escape. I mean, they climb in the video, in the reenactment, I should say, they like climb through some ceiling tiles and then they like steal some street clothes and just walk out. And so...
Yeah, it seems super easy. I was like, I would have escaped from that prison too.
Yeah.
Except that his accomplice in the reenactment jumps up on this vending machine to get through the ceiling tile, like so gracefully. I could never do that.
He was a nimble guy, yeah. And I don't know enough about... this type of security prison. I don't remember if it was medium or maximum.
But on the lower end.
Whether they have a lot of vending machines or not. I suppose they probably do and whatnot. But so they break out, and they one of the guys tells his girlfriend that they're on a weekend furlough.
She doesn't know they're escaping,
yeah.
So she's there to like pick them up. They just walk out and close, get in her car.
Yeah.
Now, maybe she did know, but this at least gives her, like, plausible deniability. So she doesn't get in trouble, which I think is it's a very smart part of the plan.
Yeah. And it's a reason that I think that I'm sort of on Patrick Michael Mitchell's side.
We know.
That he not only does he look like Kenny Loggins and have
that's just applause.
Have a soft rock charm about him. He seemed to be pleasant towards everyone. I mean, I guess he yells at some people when he robs the bank, but so anyway, that's
the price of doing business.
They break out. One of the guys gets arrested in Atlanta, but the other two, his friend Johnny Salazar Stewart, they go and they plan this robbery of a bank in Gainesville, Florida. And Johnny goes in and opens a bank account, and then he's talking to the staff. He's like making friends.
Again, smart.
Yeah, he goes in and like sort of like, I'm supposed to be here. I just opened an account. It
gives him an excuse to do this like surveillance and find out what time the shift arrives or money is brought into the safe or whatever.
Right.
Like instead of scoping it out from the outside and not really having an idea of what's going on inside. I mean, I guess, do they know who he really is? I wasn't sure on that part. But even the FBI was like, this was a good idea.
Yeah, no, the dullard FBI agent acknowledged that it was a good plan, that it made sense that he would be wandering around the bank.
We called his mustache the Patchy Cop, but the thing about this episode is it's more mustaches than mysteries. It is chock full of mustaches.
A lot of guys
and
rocking this stuff.
Each stash is better than the stash before it.
Yeah.
So this one is like so subpar.
Yeah,
throw it in the garbage.
By the time we get to the end of the episode, this one's not even worth thinking about.
There was also a guard mustache that we were calling the cell block, but again, who cares?
No. So by the end, so anyway, yeah, they plan. So what they do is they figure out when the armored car is going to come take in all the weekend deposits. So there's a lot of money, cash at the bank at this time. And it's like an hour before it opens. They burst in. They're wearing Ronald Reagan masks. And that was a big thing about part of Patrick Michael Mitchell's MO, was that he would always wear different masks. Apparently he was wearing, Reagan in this one, and then Nixon earlier, and then
Bozo the Clown
was mentioned. I kind of wondered if the hair on that
Mac
one might
once
have
went
made
to the Bozo show, just in case anyone was wondering.
I was like 3. Yeah, it was great times.
Very typical of people exactly our age from the Chicagoland area.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, they filmed it pretty nearby.
Okay, is this in a movie that people wear Reagan masks? Because to me, that seems like a very iconic bank robber thing, to rob a bank while wearing a Reagan mask. But I don't know where that image in my mind comes from.
I mean, yeah, the presidential mask thing is in some movies. I can't think of one now. The thing I was thinking of was there's this movie with Paul Hogan called Almost an Angel, where he
that's definitely not what I'm thinking of.
As different celebrities to rob banks.
No, that's not what I'm thinking of.
He's like Willie Nelson in the first one, and then he's Rod Stewart in the second one.
Sure.
And
famous people,
Well, it's not the newest movie, but 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 I always thought that was like a really good idea, like to sort of disguise yourself as someone famous, and then because it would just describe everybody would be like, I don't think it was, but it was Rod Stewart, you know?
Just looked like Rod Stewart.
Yeah,
Picture Rod Stewart.
Yeah, they wouldn't really be able to describe a person the way you go, his nose is
I
broader
would
than I was
rob
like, no, he looks
a
like Rod
bank.
Stewart.
Do you think I could rob a bank dressed like Bjork in that swan dress?
Yeah, that might, that might really...
That's a very iconic look to
right,
me.
Yeah.
That I would like the excuse to recreate.
Yeah. You could do that. You could do...
Everybody be like, what the fuck was that?
Outfits from the past, yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's not current enough. I might have to reach into the past couple decades.
But anyway, so they rob the place and they just bust in about an hour before it's supposed to open, and they
just break the front windows.
Yeah, they smash the glass and then they take the money. It's pretty cut and dry. They kind of tried to like stretch the thing out. They interviewed some of the tellers who were like, "Oh, I thought he was going to shoot me," and he didn't. And it was a bank robbery. It's not much more than that.
The timing of the bank robbery was that it was after the cash had been delivered, but before the bank opened to customers. So it was like the maximum amount of money they could have with the fewest number of bystanders, or whatever you want to call it.
So they,
Smart.
it was well thought through. It was a good plan. So then the mystery then is, where did Patrick Michael Mitchell go? Because
other than into our hearts.
They make off with $500,000, and
which they have to split between a few people. So
yeah, I wasn't clear on if it was just the two of them or if they were still cutting in the person who had helped them escape or not. But whatever it was, Stewart was found and arrested. The friend Johnny Salazar.
It's a damn
Stewart.
shame.
And
he had a Steve Harvey mustache, by the way.
He did have a very Steve Harvey-ish mustache. And then in 1994, this is a few years after the episode airs. So this isn't one of those where like the episode airs and then 6 minutes later the cops are at somebody's door.
No.
Patrick was looking at the Unsolved Mysteries going like, sorry guys, you're right. I am a master of disguise, and
I assume people saw him, recognized him, and they were like, "Oh, that's him," and I love him.
Yeah, and maybe he was just like a Robin Hood.
And then they
type.
just went back to boning.
Right,
you know, like women were like, "Oh yes, I know where he is, and he's the best I ever had."
Right. Yeah. So they no one could get a line on him, but he eventually did get caught robbing a bank in 1994. So that's 3 years after this episode, and 7 years after the actual Gainesville robbery.
The FBI is telling us we should care because he's like, he will go on their other banks. And I'm like, all right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're due for a modern, like, John Dillinger era where bank robbers become, like, sort of folk heroes among everything. So I was saying
like, but he literally didn't hurt anyone, so I'm not that worried about it.
You know, you think they would have brought that up. Like, if he had done that at some point, they probably should have mentioned it.
True. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like he liked to rob banks, but otherwise was a gentleman.
Yeah, I think the world deserves more gentleman bandits out there. We do need more people sort of like teaming up and going to like really rich people's parties, and sort of like one person's distracting them with like witty repartee, and then the other one's up in there getting like breaking the safe and stuff. I think the gentleman bandit needs to come back in our time.
This guy tried.
He did. He
had a few good years.
Great cook. What we can. They did find his car. This was a fun little note that he
had a very beautiful Cadillac. They found like a year later.
A nice big Cadillac that they found. And they decided they needed to mention that there were some cookbooks in the backseat.
I think it's because of the time that the fact that this guy liked to cook is like noteworthy.
Yeah, probably.
It's like he didn't just like make a baked potato every now and then. He actually knew how to cook food. That's like a personality trait.
A bank robber who could
feed himself, and people were like, "What?"
The Jack's frozen pizza every night.
It's like he was a man, and he owned more than just one smallish frying pan and a pot for pasta.
If the FBI guy was like,
I think he was like a little bit jealous. He was
think so,
I joined
yeah.
the FBI and my life is ho-hum. And this guy's out being a ladies' man, shirtless, making this great food, driving around in his Cadillac.
Pan-seared sea scallops for beautiful women.
Yeah. He knows what saffron is, and I don't.
I mean, but you have to say that, like, I mean, he's like tearing up Gainesville, and then he's caught in South Haven, Mississippi. And these might be lovely towns, but he's not like in Paris, plotting to
steal
rob
Mona
them.
Lisa.
Yeah, he's like, oh, we're gonna get the winged victory out in a helicopter.
If this
or
FBI
something.
guy is an indication of like who was going to be after him in Gainesville, like maybe that was really on
Actually,
purpose.
that's a good point. He might have.
He was like, this area is maybe not retaining the finest in law enforcement.
Right,
I should probably
softer targets. That's a good point.
He's not going to go to New York or something.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he could try to take over Nakatomi Plaza, but
that's not a real place.
There might be an off-duty New
that
York
is
cop
not
there,
a real
and you gotta be
place.
careful about that.
And Helsinki syndrome is not a real thing.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, he was captured in 1994. He was sentenced to 60 years in prison.
That's so much.
That's a lot. That seems
way
like a lot.
And that was him pleading.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
he pled it down. So, I mean,
That's ridiculous.
People want their money back, I guess. And,
He didn't even hurt anybody. He could have killed 3 people and had less time than that.
Yeah, but sadly, in prison, he passed away from lung cancer. So
Don't smoke, kids.
yeah,
Put down that
tough.
vape. That's what perhaps it's you. That's here to
Perhaps it's
say.
you,
Put down that vape.
Does not
Don't-
support the Juul
No,
company, huh?
no.
Okay, well,
We don't want you to die of lung cancer in prison.
fair enough.
We care about you, our fine listeners. Okay, I have a very sad one.
Yeah, this one sucks.
This is a laugh love, and it literally made me cry. Matt can attest to it. I was making a fool of myself. It starts in... Where the hell does this start? This is a Depression era lost love about a guy who we first hear is Frank, and he's living in Dillonvale, Ohio, during the Great Depression with his... I'm not sure if they're his adopted parents or his foster parents, but people who are not his biological parents, who are very awful to him and make him do chores like day and night and don't even feed him. And he has to sleep in a barn. And so the reenactment is this little kid. I think he's supposed to be 9, but the kid looks younger. And he's like raking something up in the barn. And the mom comes in and was like, how have you not fed the chickens? You're the laziest boy in the world. You don't get supper. Like literally while he's toiling in the mud. And then the guy very reasonably says, I was a bitter, angry, and upset young man. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
You were being like worked to death and also not fed. You perhaps were not in the best of spirits. Yeah, anyway, so he eventually found out that these were not his birth parents, that he was told that his birth parents had abandoned him, and then his adoptive parents also were like, we also don't want you, please leave.
I mean, it's murky details. It was
these were hard times, and these were clearly terrible people.
But yeah, it's like they wanted a kid, like, oh, you know what, a little
I think
kid
they just wanted free labor.
would do some chores around here.
And then they were like, oh, wait, a 9-year-old can only do, like, so much, even if he toils all night and day.
Yeah.
Like, he's fucking 9.
Right.
They were like, build another barn, Frank. He's like, what? He's like, he's like trying to lift a 2x4. They're like, oh, this kid's useless.
Kid sucks, man.
Get out of here, Frank.
Yeah.
And so they just show him, like, going to soup lines and stuff by himself while wearing a little Newsies cap, and it's the saddest fucking thing you ever saw. And he's just, like, wandering around, and he's like, well, sometimes I had to take bread from stores, but only as much as I needed. I'm not a thief. And I was like, Frank, it's okay.
Very sad about
I forgive you for all of that bread you stole literally to survive. So somehow he is in high school later. We missed a few years. He's in high school. He's not doing great at school, which I'm also not sure he's being fed regularly, so color me shocked. That his teacher's like yelling him about the chapter on pronouns and he does not particularly care.
Yeah.
Shocking. Oh no. Whatever happened to Frank? So a social worker tells him that if he really like cracks down and studies and graduates from high school, his birth parents will come to the graduation.
And the social worker knows his...
Yes, it turns out...
knows his real name.
His real name is Victor... Scheinman. So the first time Frank ever uses that name is at his graduation when he gets his diploma. So sad. When he gets his diploma, because he expects his birth parents to be in the audience and be like, yay, Victor Scheinman! Except they're not there. That was a fucking cruel lie just to get him to study.
And they didn't follow up on what the deal was with this weird social worker who was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just fuck with this kid.
I really think somehow in their own twisted brain, they thought that was, like, the way to, like, get him to live his life right. But it doesn't even seem like he was hurting anyone or doing anything really that wrong. He just wasn't studying hard. So to get him back on the straight and narrow, they told him, like, the cruelest possible lie.
Yeah.
So he goes through graduation, and no one is there for him, and he's still all alone.
Yeah.
And at this point, I wish I was dead.
It was pretty bad.
So it goes on. He has a life. He gets married. He has children. He is not actively looking for his family. But eventually, he's told of this organization in Ohio called Reunite, which is a support group for people who are missing loved ones. And maybe something like that still exists today, but it's just so much easier to find people than it used to be that it's kind of hard to imagine that, I think. This is literally just like people get together and they're like, oh, I'm so-and-so, and
yeah,
I don't know what happened to my sister. So at that group, he meets this amateur genealogist named Rose Murphy, who is so moved by his story that she decides to, like, take on his case. And she's very dedicated to going through all of these old county records to try to find what she can. And what she figures out is that while he thinks his name is Scheinman, S-H-I-M-A-N, it's actually Simon. And that his family was Hungarian, and someone, like, wrote that on a record incorrectly. So the reason
someone said the word Simon with a Hungarian accent, and it sounded like Scheinman.
Right.
Yeah.
So then somebody wrote down, like, oh, your name's... Well, ask him how to spell it. God. Anyway, so all this time, he hasn't been able to find any records of his family because he doesn't have the correct name. Even the name he was given from the social worker was actually wrong. So now that he has the name Simon, he's able to find the obituary for his mother. And what happened was, the day of his birth, earlier that day, his father is working on the railroad and gets his foot caught in the switch on the track, and it shatters his ankle. So he goes to the hospital. Later that day, his mom gives birth to him. Well, unfortunately, she dies as a result of complications from labor. So that means that his dad was left with him as a baby and also all of these other children to care for. And the state welfare came and took Victor away, saying, like, oh, you're not going to be able to care for this baby while you have a broken ankle. Like, we'll place him with another family. And what's nice about this story is that the, like, only tiniest silver lining is that in the official record, it said that his father really did not want to give him away. This was just desperation.
Right.
So that's why his family didn't keep him, and he ended up being with this terrible family that no child should have been placed with ever. So he does find out that his mother's name was Lena and his dad's name was Dan, and that he had several older siblings. And Rose kind of makes up this story that maybe his dad went back to foster care later and tried to get him back, but the records would have been under the wrong name and he wouldn't have been able to find him. We don't actually know that that's true, but it's a nice story, and it's very possible because the record keeping was so shoddy for this case.
Genealogist's whole deal is like going to county courthouses and looking through paper records and things. It's not, she's not like looking up this stuff in online databases, obviously. So
right.
It's all matters of slips of paper and things like that. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so that's how the segment ends. This is technically solved, but it's still sad. So the records indicate that Victor's brother George had passed away in 1967, and his sister Emma had passed away in 1987. According to Victor's grandson, he was able to locate a distant cousin in Arizona and speak to them over the phone. He also learned he had several other relatives still living in Romania.
They're Romanian. They're not...
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't help either.
as it turns out, he had relatives living in Romania. So, and so that was with the help of that genealogist, Rose. And so they say it's 97% certainty that was his family. Unfortunately, Victor died in 95, and he had not met any of those family members at the age of 73. But his grandson felt that he had met his goal because he found, quote, the people he belonged to. And his grandson at some point wanted to go to Romania and visit those relatives. I don't know if that ever happened. Part of why this segment is so sad is because it ends with him saying, like, it's so awful that he just wanted to talk to someone he belonged to.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It's tough. That's not good.
But I hope he did find some closure.
Family.
But he did go on to have his own family.
He has these grandchildren who care about him. And
his own children, and he had a wife and stuff like that.
I think he was surrounded by people who cared about him, but I understand that, you want that thing.
He seemed like he made a good life out of nothing.
Yeah.
So
and it's interesting how many of those stories kind of have that aspect to it, where like the train one, right, where they're like dumping kids off in the train.
Why did you bring up the orphan train?
But it's like, but these people end up having like these families and things. I mean,
they're able to move on from these very horrible circumstances.
It's very difficult and things, but it's there is like hope in the present for them if the past isn't maybe all that kind.
Yeah. Mac's grandmother passed away at 102, and every so often she would just have these random wild stories where you would realize, like, oh yeah, you were an adult during the Great Depression.
And her birth is very similar to Victor's in a lot of ways. Her mother died giving birth, and she could easily have been Victor if she didn't have like relatives in the area who took her in as a baby. So it's it shows, like, I mean, it's a thing that we don't think of as happening as much now, and maybe it doesn't because people live longer and
have smaller families.
Yeah, and it's just not people have moved around. It's not quite.
Less women die during childbirth.
Well, maternal mortality is way down, and I think that the state doesn't just sort of grab children and
just show up and be like,
away.
You know what would be best for you?
Yeah.
If we just took this kid.
But there are tons of stories like that. There's the church, the Catholic Church was sort of taking children and, especially in Ireland, moving them to the United States to put with a family. So it's a very institutional problem.
And more recently with reservations, into the current day.
Right.
That's been a huge problem with foster care, essentially just stealing people's children.
Yeah. So
it's a sad, bitter note in
that
this
was a
episode.
bad one.
I cried. Prepare yourself if you watch it. Okay, now we're going on to murder.
Yeah, this is even more fun.
Murder. This is The Wanted also.
This is a Wanted. This is about a guy who's apparently actually named Joe Smith.
So suspicious. I don't trust one thing about this motherfucker from the get-go with that name, Joe Smith.
Yeah.
It's so made up.
Very,
Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Smith.
Yeah. Definitely the kind of name that has an in the middle of it where you're
what's your name, good sir?
Yeah.
Joe.
But, so in 1990, this is the weird part. Like,
it is weird.
Honestly, this whole story is solved and is pretty straightforward. It's not all that exciting. At the time, he was wanted, and so that's why it was.
Thanks to Unsolved Mysteries. If we're way skipping ahead.
Yeah, if we're jumping ahead. But I just I mean, this is a pretty cut and dry case. It was a mystery at the time because he was missing, but. But the weird part about it, okay, this businessman, so it takes place in the city of
Big Dreams and High Rollers.
Big Dreams and High Rollers.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Las Vegas, Nevada. That's right.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
Viva Las Vegas, Nevada. And
Yeah. I saw that in a movie or something.
I think
Had Elvis maybe.
That doesn't sound right, but.
Oh wait, no, I meant Con Air.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah, I saw it in Con Air.
You were thinking of Nicolas Cage.
I often am.
Good Good old Cameron Poe reference there for everybody.
We try to slip one into every episode, so listen up.
So anyway, in 1990, Frank Allen, businessman, I'm not going to go any further into that. Semi-retired businessman. Frank Allen lives in Las Vegas. He rents his house to this family. 50-year-old Joe Smith, who is... They refer to as a former con man, and I don't know if that means his family knows that he used to do some tricks on the side, or if that we found that out later after this incident. But former con man, which that must have looked great on his rental application when it was like employment.
I'm sure he just lied.
This and that.
It was harder to look stuff up like that to verify things.
That's true. So anyway,
he was like, I started Fifth Third Bank, and the guy was like, "Whoa, impressive!
Nice.
Rent my house."
Well done, sir. But
I don't know why I said that so much random.
Yeah.
That just seems like that would be a good reference,
right in if you're an account holder with Fifth Third Bank.
No, please don't. I don't care. But
Right in. With your account number and routing number, and just let us know. We'll verify that. And
Venmo me those things along with a donation.
Send you a.
I just thought it would sound respectable.
Anyway,
what do I know?
So Joe and his wife Judith and her 2 daughters from a previous marriage. Christy is 12 and Wendy is 20, and so they're living in this house in Las Vegas. And in the reenactment, it seems like maybe they moved in 2 nights earlier because they're like in very temporary
air mattresses.
Yeah,
there's like no furniture in there.
Yeah, it seems very. So I don't know if this was a very short-term rental or
reenactment, or
yeah. I mean, you think just a bed would be something you could get your hands on, but
Unsolved Mysteries had to cut some corners.
Yeah, the Hollywood, a
bed? Are you out of your mind? We can't afford that.
The studio just did not have money for.
It's an air mattress, or they sleep on the ground.
Yeah, but anyway, it seemed a little strange that they were in very temporary looking housing, but that is neither here nor there, because for some reason Joe tells Frank that he and his family are going out of town and he can come by. I guess you said he was picking up a check. It just seemed like he was there.
Okay, in a different article that I read about this case, it said that he was stopping by to pick up a check, I assume for the rent. But Unsolved Mysteries said something about he still had a room there and would stay there. Like they were his roommates, but they had the whole house and he only had a room?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there that often?
Like a reverse rental.
It sort of seemed like he bought a house for retirement. He wasn't fully retired yet. So he was still working, wherever he lived or whatever, and was occasionally coming to Las Vegas. So he didn't need the whole house at this time. He just needed a room to sleep in when he was there.
So he's like
renting it out,
his own home.
Yeah.
I mean, fair enough. Whatever. I mean, the situation might have worked if it weren't for Joe, who
Joe really fucked it all up.
Who was waiting for Frank on the night he came over,
weirdly crouching in a closet, which seemed unnecessary.
Yeah, because Frank comes in expecting the house to be empty, and he is walking around. He goes into his room, and then he is sort of like, what's going on? I don't know. He was just sort of wandering around. He goes into the bedroom, and Joe leaps out with a hammer and conks him one good.
Worst resident ever.
Yeah, bad tenant.
Tenant. That's the word I'm looking for. Tenant.
Yeah,
he's not good at that.
I think a lot of landlords are pretty awful in a lot of ways, but the ones who get hit with hammers, I mean, it's the tenants who attack you with a hammer.
He wasn't even a real landlord. He was just a not quite retired guy.
Yeah, it just shows you got to be a little bit more careful with some of these situations. But so Joe leaps out, attacks him, and they have this kind of screwball chase around the house.
Chase, yeah.
And Frank is very, I think,
so calm and collected.
He's very calm about it, as though this kind of happens a lot.
He is not fazed by the fact that he rented his house to a madman who wanted to kill him with a hammer.
Yeah, and so he seems pretty proud about his little trick that he plays, because he makes it clear that he was going. The house kind of, there's 2 paths through the house, one through the kitchen and one through the family room, and he darts over to go through the kitchen, and he's like, I knew he was gonna think I was going around. It was like when you're like a dog is chasing you around a table or something, and you're like, I'm gonna stop and turn back. Yeah. And so he stopped, turned back, and he had locked these doors behind him. He was very specific on the details. And again, I feel like this didn't have maybe the amount of content that they wanted.
They're like, we're including every word.
So this guy's gonna tell a story about several deadbolts being locked. So anyway, he leaps through a plate glass window to
see. This is smart
to get out.
He's like, I remembered I had double bolted the door. I didn't have time. I guess he needed the key to undo one of them or something.
Well, now this I can speak to.
Oh, okay.
My family installed a door with a big window in it, and they were like, oh well, we don't want a person to be able to like punch through and just turn the lock.
Yeah.
So we're going to put a key on both sides.
And then just leave the key in the...
Well, they did that during the day. And then they kind of move it over onto the counter at night.
Hey, don't break into Mac's family's house.
I was convinced. Like, this was years and years and years ago. I was convinced. I was like, we're going to lose that key and never be able to open this door.
You just call a locksmith.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, we're going to lose these keys all the time. We've never lost it. It's been like 20 years. It's just been fine. I'm amazed. So kudos to the McCormick family for figuring out not to lose that key. Keep it on the table or on the counter. And guys, don't break into my parents' house. They don't need that.
Yeah, that would be so rude.
But anyway, so you lock the inside so that people can't punch through.
So he knows he doesn't have time to get the key and unlock the door, so he just breaks through the plate glass window, which I'm not sure I would have thought of as smart.
Again, this guy is
he's a cool
justifiably
cucumber.
Proud of his like daring do in this situation.
If I escaped someone trying to murder me with a hammer, you bet I would not shut up about her. I would be very proud.
Anyway, he's a pretty minor character in this whole story. But he gets in his car, drives away, goes, like, it's a gated community, so he tells the guy at the gate.
There's a dude in my house trying to kill me.
He's trying to kill me in my house. And so they
Why do I live in a gated community? I rented my house out to a ex-con turned hammer murderer.
Yeah, the con man thing never comes up, honestly. But anyway,
just to show you he's a sketchy dude.
In the meantime, the gated aspect of the community must be less secure than one would hope, because Joe Smith disappears. Cops get there. There's no one there. But they find that Joe has bludgeoned to death his entire family, and was clearly planning to do it to Frank too. And why is never established. There's no insurance on any of them.
Nope.
There's no.
There's not like a will or anything.
There's no will. He doesn't seem to gain in any way from this.
Nope. He's just a family annihilator,
and
I guess Frank was going to wander in on it. It seems like it's just a timing thing.
But so they had been dead for 18 hours when the cops got there.
So he's just like
he
waiting.
Was in the building
just waiting
for
to
Frank.
Kill Frank. Weird. You're right. That's weird.
And they don't go into that, and it doesn't really seem like there's any reason for that. He just planned. But
the good news is.
Well, no. The good news is something else. But in the meantime, Joe calls a third sister.
I forgot about this part.
There's the two younger sisters are living with their mother and Joe, and then this third one is older and she lives off on her own. And Joe calls this sister and says that they've been murdered, and that Joe
not by him.
Joe saw the man do it and was gonna go get him, and that he was gonna take care of it. And so he tells her that, and this might be the con man aspect, where he's just trying to lie to like set some level of believability that it wasn't him, even though he had presumably attacked Frank with the same weapon that he used to kill everybody else. But
this guy's not nearly as like methodical and collected as Frank, so he's not going to get away with these murders.
No, and he doesn't have the cooking skills or facial cleansing regimen of Patrick.
He's got very little going for him. Let's be honest.
So he
did have a family, but he murdered them.
So anyway, he gets in his car, which is a very flashy. It's a gold Lincoln Continental, and it has like Smitty 2 as his license plate.
Smitty 2.
So he takes off with that.
Old Smitty.
I'm guessing he didn't keep that going. But anyway, the reason it was considered a mystery is because there's no motive that anyone can find. Again, no financial gain comes from
And Joe
this.
was on the run.
Joe's on the run, and they, presumably had some success showing people's pictures and getting them on TV. And
It was very clear it was him.
yeah, no, I mean, this is like a case where there's no...
Where they just were like, hey, here's a photo of this guy. Help us find him.
They might as well have just... I mean, if they didn't have 44 minutes of airtime to fill out, they probably would have just been like, if you see this dude, just call.
Just call.
Like, it's
He's
not
a
worth,
shithead.
it's not worth going into, but if you know this person...
He killed his family.
Yeah,
if you could just
like-
give us a call. This segment had 2 mustaches, and I for sure thought one of them was going to be MVM. We got a cop with what we were calling Walter White Season 1.
Yeah. I do not like this mustache. I think this is...
It's pretty
this
bad.
is the coward's mustache is what this is.
Wow, harsh.
This is where you basically shave it off every day, but it's kind of there, and you can... I don't know what the point of this is, other than...
It makes you so angry.
It's just like, what are you doing, man? Why grow a mustache if you're going to grow a mustache?
It's a very big mustache. What are you talking about?
It covers a lot of ground, but it is extremely close cropped, and it's almost like heavy stubble more than a mustache.
I don't know.
If the rest of his face wasn't shaven, you would just be like, oh, that guy's got kind of the 5 o'clock shadow thing going on. But because he carefully shaves every other aspect of his face, but leaves that as though it's been growing for 4 days, it just looks weird, and I don't like it.
It's interesting to get the perspective of someone who has at times shaved their face.
Yeah.
You bring a different nuance to this than Samantha does.
There are reasons to grow a mustache, and your upper lip. Well, yeah,
Are
yeah. There's you are in
You're recording
pornography in the 1980s.
You're recording Mambo number 5.
You are. Yeah, there's lots of reasons.
Two
reasons. You want to let your neighbors know, without having that awkward conversation. You want to let your neighbors know that you are on the predators list.
All right, okay. That's not fair.
Yeah.
We don't advocate mustache discrimination.
Mustache shaming is not okay. I apologize. No, I mean
there could be other appropriate reasons.
The upper lip is a sensitive place to shave. I understand a person not wanting to do it.
Okay.
But I don't understand a person wanting to pretty much do it
and then just
and
not.
then not.
Okay, there was also another one that came to sort of uneven points on each side. And it was also a very full cop mustache. But what was interesting about this guy was his name was Sergeant E. Edwards.
That's Edward Edwards.
Possibly Edward Edwards.
He's totally...
We would like to think his name is Edward Edwards. He was also wearing a very purple sweater.
Yeah.
Intensely purple, but it was the 80s, so it was a colorful time, fashion-wise.
He was from the Los Angeles Police Department, which is where shortly after the episode aired, someone reported that Joe Smith was living in Los Angeles. He had shaved his mustache.
You could really tell, too. Like, the skin under it was so much paler.
Yeah, he
and
had
like
a tan on the rest of his
he had just like a mustache-shaped tan.
Yeah, it was kind of funny.
Not a good look. And very, like, that hair came in thick, so it was very stubbly.
Yeah, no, he looked a little weird. And,
see, he probably should have had a mustache.
Well, he clearly did.
Well, I mean, he is a person who should have a mustache. His face wants a mustache. Yeah. But he's a dirtbag. Obviously, he can't win MVM. And
he was trying to...
Isn't he dead? Is he dead?
Yeah. He was sentenced to death.
Huh.
I don't know that... It doesn't actually say that he was executed, so he might be awaiting execution. But
why did I kill my whole family? I could have just, laughed.
But yes, he was caught in Los Angeles.
Minutes after the broadcast. Calls started coming in.
He was his brother lived in Los Angeles, and he was tracked down and was arrested. And then he for some reason told the detectives that he was in the process of creating a new identity, which...
Dude,
shut up.
Keep that to yourself.
Yeah, isn't your lawyer going like... But...
Maybe they literally caught him with a laminating machine, making a new driver's license, and he was like, "Hey guys!"
Well, even then, you just say "Oh no, I started a club, and these are the cards for the."
It's club. Literally a fake driver's license.
Yeah. It's the driving club. It's the license. I don't know.
I'm just doing this to prove that I'm not gonna do it ever.
Yeah. I wanted to see if I could so that I knew how to not do it.
Yeah. I wanted to stop other people.
Yeah, but
I'm really anti-counterfeiting.
But I don't know. Maybe it doesn't really seem like a lawyer was helping him out because he didn't even like plead down from the death penalty, right?
That is bad.
Like,
I'm anti-death penalty, but still, I'm like, let's...
Like, yeah, I don't...
Oh, so this guy seems extremely guilty.
No, he
killed most of his family with a hammer.
Seems
it's
like
pretty
he did it.
Disgusting, but it is strange that he couldn't plead that down to life in prison to save the cost of a trial.
Yeah. But yeah,
he is actually. Sad. I'm fine if he can smoke in prison. That's fine with me.
Well, he
pick up that vape.
Again, I don't know that that's what's happening, but the jewel pods are now the new currency for inmates, right? Yeah, they're like, oh, you got that raspberry.
Prison expert.
I'll trade you a raspberry for the
pumpkin
watermelon.
Spice.
Yeah. Well, now those are illegal. I believe they can only do sort of like traditional tobacco flavors because they're basically marketing them to children.
What about immature people?
You're gonna have to.
What if you just want to enjoy a nice Mike's Hard Lemonade and a strawberry?
Jewel?
Yeah.
Huh? Well, I don't know what to tell you.
What about people like me?
You know, it's just
no
just
justice.
This
no
culture,
justice. No peace. Mac's so offended right now. Okay, well, Mac.
No, I buy it. I think you're right. I think vapors' rights is at the forefront.
That's what I'm going to take up.
Yeah, you and Grover Norquist.
You're like, marijuana legalization, and I'm like, no.
I want to be able to vape e-juice anywhere I go.
Yeah. You're like, like decriminalizing marijuana and letting people out of prison that are serving time for 9 nonviolent offenses, and I'm like, no, I want to be able to smoke inside.
Yeah, you want a vapors section of
airplanes, restaurants, Denny's. Remember the good old days when you could smoke at Denny's?
That was they held on to the bitter end. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of business for them.
Just teenagers ordering plates of like bacon cheese fries so they could smoke inside.
Yeah, I'm sure the servers were so thankful there weren't people just milking bottomless coffee so they could smoke in the winter. Okay.
Anyway,
now that I've offended Mac.
No,
with my new bold political action group.
I think vapors' rights.
The Parappa View vapors' rights.
Probably are the most important issue of our day. Yeah. I would say.
Give or take.
I would say that the Constitution should probably be amended to enshrine vapors' rights permanently.
Did you know that George Washington grew tobacco?
Now that I'm not sure is going to help you in your vaping rights campaign.
I think they say that in the terrible 90s TV movie stoner voice.
The Stephen Baldwin from Biodome voice, yeah.
Very specific. I went to a very specific acting school.
He was good in that. He was good. Biodome was a great movie.
Biodome School of Acting. Could you imagine?
Do you?
Oh my god.
Are you a Biodome or are you an In the Army Now Pauly Shore fan?
I'm not sure.
I think it goes without saying that you are a Pauly Shore fan. So
I don't think I ever saw In the Army Now.
No, okay.
But I think I saw part of Biodome on TV.
I want to say I'm not positive about this, but I am fairly certain that people who have been in the Army have told me that In the Army Now is one of the most realistic Army movies. Like, just that it's not all war and crazy. Like,
it's just mostly fucking around.
Yeah.
Who is the love interest in Son-in-Law? Is that Drew Barrymore? Who's the female lead?
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
Who gets an ankle tattoo and then the family is like all scandalized? I would say
get Son-in-Law and Benny and June mixed up, and I know that's going to upset a lot of people. But I'm just saying that Pauly Shore and Johnny Depp have the same presence for me.
You're the first person to ever say that.
Who did the weasel thing? That was Johnny Depp, right? It was him as Captain Jack Sparrow. He was like, the weasel, right? Like, that was him.
It might as well be at this point. Johnny Depp's such a fucking joke. Anyway, I was gonna say I'm more of a Son-in-Law fan, except that I can't tell you who else was in that movie.
Okay, sure. No, I kind of forget about that one, but you're right.
Samantha's gonna listen to this and just be like, I have no idea what they're talking about. What the absolute fuck?
Okay. We're leaving out Encino Man, I think, is probably something to talk about here before we move on.
On the Pauly Shore Rewatch Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Shore Maniacs.
Shore, yeah. The Shore Report.
The Shore. Oh, my God. I just think of that Rob Schneider character now where he was always like, going to the copier, making copies. Yeah. Whatever the fuck that was supposed to be comedy.
That was very funny.
Was it?
I love those bits because it's like 40 people who have never stepped foot in an office are like, what do people in offices talk about? Like
making copies.
It's probably making copies. So let's do something with that. Yeah, like all these
Copinator.
All these like 25-year-olds who have never worked a day in their lives.
Sure.
Yeah.
I know that Daddy always complained about the people at his office not working hard enough.
Yeah, making too many copies. I think we should
got to incorporate that into our act.
Yeah.
Well, that was a tangent to end.
A bit of a distraction. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's a good thing for the Shore Report to talk about. Branch out into some Rob Schneider territory. There's no reason for us to be stalling, though, because this next segment might be my new favorite segment.
It was good.
It kind of blew my mind, to use a very 90s phrase. I'm very current. Now
How's your mind? Blown.
Oh, it's blown.
Yeah.
I kind of have the church giggles now where I'm trying not to laugh and it's making it worse. Okay. We're talking about the Kelsey house. This is in Reno, Nevada. The house dates back to...
This was in Reno? They kept changing the name of the place.
Jesus H. Christ, Mac.
I'm honestly surprised because I remember them saying it was a Kansas-style house in Nevada outside Virginia City. And I was just like, where?
Virginia City is right by Reno.
Okay, that helps.
So it is a reportedly haunted house. It was moved to its current location. Oh, maybe I'm totally wrong about that. From Virginia City. It's from Virginia City. It was moved to Reno.
Okay.
Where it resided next to a cemetery for many years before moving to a street in Reno.
So this... Okay.
Did I just not make...
it makes sense that you said that. It doesn't make sense that someone did that. Is
there
the
once
issue
upon a time there was a house. The house was in Virginia City. For some reason,
it so much.
They said, let's take this Kansas-style farmhouse that's for some reason in Virginia City and move it to 600 Grazier Grande in Reno.
Yeah.
At one point, it was by a graveyard, just so you know. But it was not considered haunted until it was moved to Reno. The first series of encounters lasted from 1977 to 1981 and to members of the Kelsey family. Now, oh my God, did I even write down this guy's name or was I laughing so hard?
Well, if we're talking about the person I think you're talking about, he's not a member of the Kelsey family, so don't get ahead of that. He's the second tenant in the house.
He is?
Yes.
No, he's not.
No, Mr. Kelsey is the guy in who agreed to participate in the reenactment, but insisted on wearing only his underwear while doing
You're right. Okay, no, you're right. Okay. So I think the reason I'm confused is to introduce this, you cut in, we get little snippets from both families who lived in this house and had hauntings. And so it is a little confusing. Because you get, ooh, this house is so haunted, and then they go into more depth.
They do a more general overview of the haunting of the home, and then they start out with the Kelsey family, who are...
when you get that little overview, you get to see the most profound, life-changing... I
would say valuable. The most valuable.
You're right. The most valuable mustache I have ever fucking seen. It is sort of like, if you're familiar with the American Chopper mustache, but that mustache had like gone feral. Like if that mustache could have been left in the sun and it turned like milk.
This is Paul Sr. after
bender,
a long time out in the wilderness, where he still had access to a razor. to shave the rest of his face.
It is both gray and ginger, and the top part is kind of maintained, and then as it gets longer, it just becomes wild and free.
Yeah. It's somewhere between a biker and a Civil War general.
Yes. It is. I would say it's the best mustache we've seen yet. I'm very sad that Samantha's not here today, and I'm going to hold it against her for a really long time.
It is a quality mustache.
But you're right. That's not part of the Kelsey family. So the Kelsey family moved into this house, but at night they were hearing what sounded like footsteps of people walking up and down the stairs, and the husband heard what he described as swooshing, like a long old-timey dress whoosh, on the ground. And both of the parents seemed to just be like, yep, we're hearing ghosts. They were like on the same page, in agreement, like, those are ghosts that we hear. At some point, their 3-year-old daughter, Jennifer, sees a ghost of a little boy and then an older man by her bed for like a few seconds. And she explains to us that that's like really weird.
Yeah.
And then also possibly on the same night.
It's not like a regular ghost.
No, it's not like a regular ghost that would be watching me while I was asleep. This was like a weird ghost.
A weird ghost.
Also, possibly the same night her bed levitated.
Yeah.
She just kind of throws that out there.
Right.
Like, I really associate with this memory of my bed levitating. I'd be like, seeing a ghost, your bed levitating. Yeah, I might group those in like same general
the paranormal phenomenon file folder I have in my brain.
Yeah. So at this point, the Kelseys go to this local psychic named Dan Martin, who I swear is not properly introduced at all, or maybe I was just laughing too hard. We'll never know. And
Dan's one of the unsung heroes of
just life,
of
the
Reno,
American
Nevada,
way.
for sure.
I salute him.
Sure.
I salute psychic Dan Martin.
Mm-hmm.
He, after hearing this story, possibly not even at the house, just puts himself in a trance.
Yeah.
And he goes to meet with the ghosts. He learns that the older ghost is named Samuel, and that he is the one haunting the house, and that he is there to protect Jennifer, and he has no interest in harming the family.
Yeah, well, he doesn't meet the little boy ghost.
No.
He basically comes up with his own story and Samuel, of course, is what you and I would know as a sailing man. Right. You know, that job people have. That job ghosts have. Sailing man.
He looked like a sailing man. He had the mustache for it.
He had the mustache of a sailing man.
What?
You know how Reno, the port of Reno?
Okay, well,
the big port.
The house isn't what you have to assume is that the ghost.
Oh, I'm sorry. The port of Virginia City, Nevada. Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
He's a sailing man.
The sailors, all the sailors who come in and out during Fleet Week.
Did you not hear me? He had the mustache for it. I'm sorry. Yeah. Were you even fucking listening?
I was. I just, I'm the sailing man and his sailing mustache.
Okay, so anyway, Samuel, the sailor, says...
The psychic is great because he doesn't know the word sailor. I like that.
He's so psychic, he doesn't know a common word.
I mean, he's from Nevada. Maybe he's one of those, boat riding guys.
I feel like I say stuff like that on this podcast all the time because it's just basic vocabulary.
With the eye patch and the peg leg and the spyglass. He's like, land ho!
Yeah, he's one of those guys. One of those hoes. Guys. Yeah. So the ghost tells the psychic that he is there to protect and not harm the family. And apparently that's good enough for the psychic.
Yeah, case closed.
Case closed.
It's haunted, but it's fine.
I mean, maybe that would be reassuring.
You will never sleep a good night in your life, but just chill. Whatever.
Well,
they're fine. He's nice.
Despite
He's a sailing man.
He's a sailing man. If you want to sail, oh man. Despite this reassurance from the psychic, they do fucking move out, so...
Yeah, it's almost like they're not enjoying the apparition of an 1870's weirdo, staring at their daughter as she sleeps.
An 1870's weirdo. That wasn't helping their daughter sleep for some reason.
Yeah. He keeps lifting her bed up and stuff. She wakes up with these horrible nightmares.
It was, kind of weird. was a little weird.
Yeah.
There was a sailor watching
wasn't
me.
my favorite place to live.
Yeah,
you know?
she's like trying to be positive about it.
They moved to another house or whatever,
so
and it's fine.
They moved to another house. At this point, they've had another child.
But they own the home, right?
Yes, they move out, but they don't. They rent it out and move somewhere else.
Come on.
What? Would it be better if they sold it?
Well, according to our mustachioed friend, it would be better if they burnt the place to the ground.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that this segment opens with people being like, I hope they burn that place to the ground. And there's so much dry ice outside this farmhouse as they're shooting it, and the music is the best. The music is like one of those cassette tapes you would get of Halloween music to play for trick-or-treaters. I love it. It's so good. Yeah. Okay. I hope they burn that place to the ground. So they move to a new house. They have another baby. The mom's taking pictures of the baby on the couch with some little stuffed animals like a Pink Panther. Whatever. She has to, at some point, people may not be familiar with this experience, but she had to use up the end of her film in order to get it developed. When the pictures come back, one of the pictures is the face of a man.
That's right. It was not a baby. It was a man.
The man no one in town recognizes because there's such a slow news day, their paper runs it.
Yeah, and this may be, I am not a native Minnesotan, but I am a fan, going way back, of former governor and current hero Jesse the Body and Mind Ventura. And it looks a lot like him. And
it looks a lot like him. So when they were like, no one recognized this man, I was like, really?
Because it sure looks like the star of Predator, Jesse Ventura.
And they have
that star is stretching it. He was a minor character in Predator.
It's an ensemble.
Yeah, right.
Really, the Predator is the star.
Exactly.
Samantha's gonna be so glad we put that in there. She's gonna be like, "What? I don't understand anything you talked about in this episode."
Mm-hmm. Watch Predator.
Yeah, that is our problem.
The first one, the Schwarzenegger one.
Well, obviously.
There's been several others.
Samantha's not going to watch Predator. She's not going to watch any of the Predators.
All right, fine. Fair enough.
I can't imagine a world where Samantha gets her popcorn, puts her feet up, and turns on the Predator.
But accidentally turns on Predator 2, and it's just Danny Glover, like, screaming for the whole movie.
Yeah, I used to do that a lot.
That's a weird one.
Anyway, whoa. This photo is examined by an expert. And he says, first of all, clearly this is a dude. This is not a ghost. Light is reflecting off of him. He's not glowing. He's not see-through. It's a dude.
The thing I found most interesting about that expert is he said basically there are ghosts. I've seen pictures of ghosts, and this isn't one.
He believes in ghosts. Yeah. And he goes, using my expertise, I've examined this photo, and it ain't no ghost.
Yeah.
This is a picture of a large television.
Of a TV, yeah.
Because you can
lines on
see these squiggly lines that used to be on TVs.
Yeah.
Arden, you don't know what I'm talking about, but other people may remember that you got those tracking lines, whatever, those glitches.
Yeah, from an old like CRT TV, there would be little lines on it, and that supports my theory that this is a picture of Jesse Ventura and not
Jesse Ventura.
Because I mean, he would have probably been on TV.
Mad at me. Okay, so the mom's theory is that the ghost follows them to the house. Nothing ever happens again.
No, that's it. Maybe he's saying goodbye. He's like, I'm a sailing man.
I'm going to sail away.
And I need to sail on.
He's like, you know what my favorite Enya track is?
Yeah.
Sail away.
I believe that's Orinoco Flow, isn't it?
Oh,
if you wanted to cut this out, that's fine. But
God.
The song's called Orinoco Flow.
He's totally right, folks. Look it up. Yeah, pure moods, everyone.
We could also talk about the Styx song, Come Sail Away.
No, we couldn't.
Yeah.
Though Styx did play Mac's dad's prom.
Yeah.
So, everybody. Yeah. We're learning a lot about the McCormick family today.
It's a big one. I'm opening the archives.
Mac had a grandma, and his dad once heard Styx. You heard it here first.
They also have a glass door in their back door.
Oh, it's just a menagerie of treasures.
Can see right in.
There's really actually nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, so now they've rented the house out. New family moves in. This is the Robinson family.
Okay, now this is where I'm saying, they didn't tell the Robinsons, like, oh yeah, no, ghosts will bother you every night.
First of all, I don't think it was well, okay, maybe it was every night. But would you tell someone else that? Or would you think...
I mean...
they would probably not think you were well.
I would probably say, like...
I guess you might have to ask... Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in ghosts?
Yeah, and if they say no, then you go...
Great! Don't worry about it. This place only certainly doesn't have any sailing ghosts.
It's going to be a great time. You know what a sailing man is?
No, because that's not a phrase. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Huh, well, enjoy the house. Maybe they made it like a really good deal, though.
It was $8 a month.
You know, in 80s money, though.
Yeah. We were going to burn it down for the insurance, but that would only be $7.
So the Robinson family moves in, which is Steve with his glorious mustache, Mona, and then like 18, 19 children.
About 45 children, yeah.
So many children. way too many children move into this house in October.
The cast of Oliver moved in with them.
It's just not a big house, also. Yeah. And this is in October of 89. Also, they had to pick the spookiest month. Bad choice.
That is
okay.
Spooktober.
That's what you call it.
That's what I call it. I don't know if you've heard that before.
No.
No?
Huh.
Okay. I also call it Rocktober. I probably call it Rocktober more.
Yeah, I think I've heard you call it Rocktober way more than Spooktober.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Rocktober makes a little more sense. And, you know, it's a good time to rock.
When isn't a good time to rock, though?
Fair. Yeah.
Funerals.
I mean, you got me.
Weddings.
No, I think you identified the problem with Rocktober.
Man that just corrected me on the title of an Enya song.
I don't play a lot of Orinoco Flow during Rocktober, I'll say that.
Well, it wouldn't fit in, would it?
It's more of
that would be a bad choice.
From a Moods Timber.
Oh, yeah. Pure Moods Timber?
Yeah.
I really want to get a Pure Moods tattoo.
That and that,
by which I mean literally
song,
the CD Pure Moods. I want to get a tattoo. Am I ever going to be talking about this haunting?
Yeah,
no.
You should probably get on with it.
Oh my God. Go get our divorce papers ready while I talk about that. So the visitations began with footsteps and a disembodied voice of an angry man with white hair, who was apparently not Samuel. And whether or not he was a sailing man, can't say. So they saw 3 different ghosts than the previous family. The first person to experience it was Garrett, their 11-year-old son, who it seemed like one day he got home first, like he got home from school and he was hearing all these noises upstairs, like footsteps and laughing, and he went upstairs and it got even louder and he was hearing at least 3 voices and arguing and like doors closing. So he runs out of the house. The screen door like starts banging behind him. He turns around and then he sees this like old man snarling at him from the window.
He said he was smirking, and then he didn't think it was like a mean grin. It was just like a smile. Like he was like being a rascal. Yeah. These are the puckish ghosts. I like
getting such a detailed description from an 11-year-old also. What? He really wants to set the scene. And so thank you, Garrett. Yeah. Who, as Mac pointed out, is our age probably.
Yeah, no, I mean...
Garrett, where are you? Come on over.
This was 1991 or something
Let's hang
that.
out.
And he's 11, so yeah, he's pretty close. Yeah.
Let's hang out sometime. So he was hearing 2 male and 1 female ghosts, according to him. So after that, his 6-year-old brother Miles was levitated in their bed. At this point, the wife is very agitated and does not want to go to sleep, and she's worried about her children. And Mr. Robinson is like, oh, I thought she was just losing it.
It's this great scene where she's like, yeah, we were trying to get to bed, and he's just snoozing.
He's like, Mac was like, oh, I think he'd more than tried. Well, I think he's just dead asleep.
It's a reenactment, and the reenactments are kind of great. I mean,
these are some of my favorite reenactments.
Well, Unsolved Mysteries is more fun. Sometimes it's very sad because they get some like bereft parent to like walk down where their kid died, and that seems a little rough, but this one's fun because they get the families to actually pretend that they're waking up. And to go back to the Kelsey family for a minute, I alluded to it, that like the Kelsey dad and mom have this scene where the dad gets up and like lights a candle, like it's 1860.
Biggest candle. It's huge, and he's just in his underwear.
It's kind of amazing that the house didn't burn down, since they're apparently not using electric lights. But
people a few times were like, "It's amazing the house has lasted this long," which is only 100 years old, so I don't really get that. But if you are lighting gigantic candles in the middle of the night, maybe it is amazing.
It is weird that they moved it twice and that it's still up, but like that reenactment was just great because he could have worn pajamas or anything.
It's Nevada. He sleeps in his underwear. Realism.
But this guy, he's just some average dude,
hot.
but he's like, no, I'm putting my foot down, producer. I was in my underwear, and
I'm sorry, do you want to reenact what happened to me, or don't you?
And so you get the Stephen Robinson, is like, okay,
snoozing.
He's just like got one arm above his head,
full on
like,
snoring,
his mouth open and
drooling on himself.
And his wife's like,
I thought he was saying that his wife is nuts, on TV.
But clearly that was in the context of going, well, originally I thought she was insane, but then
obviously I didn't do anything about it. But
she's picking her nails, and then like the ghost like just calls her a bitch. It's the weirdest thing. It's just out of nowhere. It's just like,
it was quite rude.
It's very rude, and it's very unkind.
Here she is having trouble sleeping. She's worried about her 19 children, who
all seem to be sleeping in
19, 24, 48 children, and she's trying to go to sleep, and the ghost is just like, hey, bitch.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed very odd that she
haunting is one thing, but misogyny is serious.
Well, it's just most times you hear about a ghost, they're like they do the same thing every time. They float across. They like go to one place. If you read about ghosts, they're attracted to a thing. They're trying to resolve something, and this guy just seems like, I'm gonna make this woman feel bad. Like what on earth?
This sort of seems more like a horror movie where, for whatever reason, the ghosts are trying to drive them out of the house. Like they're not trying to hurt them
lazily and not very.
Well, we hear from our psychic Martin again. I don't know how this family got in touch with them or knew they had hauntings or whatever, but apparently after this incident, he goes into yet another trance, and he meets the 3 ghosts, which he decides are just cantankerous.
Yeah.
And that they're just rabble-rousers.
They're just like ornery folk.
Yeah, it's based on... He seems to gather no information, and once again comes back and it's just like, it's fine.
That seems to be his... And to be fair, nobody got hurt, It's not like they raised a piano and
they
dropped it on
only lived
somebody.
there for 4 months.
Yeah.
They moved out because of these ghostly incidences. She says, you never believe anything like that until it happens to you. And so they had to go somewhere else. Now, apparently, the house has gone on to new owners. It was sold by the Kelseys eventually.
Where they did disclose that they had been having these hauntings, yeah.
And no one has reported any hauntings since, according to Unsolved Mysteries. And it ends with Robert Stack saying something weird about how ghosts may exist only in the eye of the beholder, perhaps.
Yeah.
Some strange sentence structure, but I appreciate him just inserting the word perhaps wherever he can.
Well, it's kind of that.
Perhaps it's you who's the ghost. You've been dead this whole time.
What if there was a movie like that?
Oh, that would do so well.
Yeah.
And everything touched by the ghost was red? It's called...
We should write that.
It's called symbolism. Okay, that's the episode. Let's rate it. How do you feel about it in terms of mysteriousness?
Well, I would say that Joe Smith, open and shut.
Yeah, that's not mysterious at all.
The kid with the family is very sad, but not terribly
really
mysterious.
Just sad.
The bank robber is
not mysterious.
Kind of awesome, but not mysterious.
So it's really just the ghost.
So it's only the ghost, and other than the mystery of like
the freaking
how
sailing
all
man.
of these people can coexist in the same world, and
the mystery of how that mustache came to be.
There's some mystery there, but it's not what they think it is. So
no, thumbs down, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you feel about the reenactment?
Oh, I did like... I didn't...
Quality.
I would say
quality.
The first reenactment was not that good. And
which one?
Of Michael,
of the bank robbery.
Of the bank robbery of Patrick Michael Mitchell. Yeah. Well, I feel like the acting was fine, but they didn't really. They did a better job with Johnny Stewart than they did with that. Like, I don't know. It was.
You wanted
fine,
some more bank robbing glamour.
I think they should have gotten Kenny Loggins for the part,
or just like Robert Redford with a mustache. Like,
well, no. I want to go with realism, so I would say they should.
They should have gotten the one and only Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that might have been a little out of their budget. So,
I mean, I guess you make a point that they were they could only afford the air mattresses in that one.
I don't know what was happening there.
But I would say that actually the guy who they got to play Joe Smith looked a lot like Joe Smith.
Yes, actually, we've complained in previous episodes that the casting is so bad that it's distracting.
Yeah.
That sometimes you can't even tell who someone's supposed to be because it doesn't look a thing like him. But that casting was very good. The casting of Victor Simon as a teenager
was very good, yeah.
So good. They show, after the reenactment of him graduating and his family not being there, they show his yearbook photo, and it looked exactly like the actor they got.
Yeah, it was quite good.
Blech.
And then the reenactments of the ghosts, I think, were great, especially because Mr. Kelsey insisted on the realism of him just wandering around his house in his underwear.
World's largest pillar candle from Pier 1.
Yeah.
I mean, even if all the other reenactments were terrible, I would still give this a thumbs up because the ghost reenactments are so hilarious. They're actually pretty good. I felt like the pacing in this episode is very good. I like that there's 4 mysteries. None of them seemed that long. You got an amuse-bouche of just a little snack of different types of mysteries. You do have 2 wanteds, but they're kind of different since one is a murder and one's a bank robbery. I would definitely give it a thumbs up for... Yeah, no,
I thought the reenactments were a high point.
Okay, fashion.
There were some classic early 90s outfits on people. I remember you mentioning that the one guy was wearing a shirt that like literally every dad at the time
it was like
a polo shirt.
Very thin, like a t-shirt fabric polo, a jersey polo with a blue and white stripe.
Yeah.
Yeah, every single dad in America had that shirt.
And then some of the moms were wearing some good
we get that dude in a purple sweater.
The purple sweater was
I think
good.
One of the bank tellers was wearing like purple eyeshadow like to her eyebrow in a pretty majestic way. And really just so many mustaches, like even more mustaches than we talked about.
There was
bang,
just,
bang, bang. So
I would say more men in the episode had mustaches than didn't have mustaches.
It was, you would think there was some law that you had to have a mustache.
Yeah.
So thumbs up for fashion, if you ask me.
Fashion was quite good.
Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5 Robert stacks, with 1 being Alcatraz, and 5 would be your son is a Satanist, where would you rate this episode? How many Robert stacks?
That's a tough one. I mean, it's probably not as good as the nudist episode.
Yeah, 5 is the nudist one.
I guess I'd have to go with 4.
I agree. I think this is a very solid episode.
I think it was quality. I think the bank robbery was fun. I think the story was sad, but added a little bit of pathos to it.
It was so well done that I cried. So you kind of have to give it credit for that. It's a very sad, tragic story, but they didn't fuck it up. Like they told it well.
The murders were grisly and gross, but they didn't sort of.
They didn't linger on it.
Yeah, they didn't make it kind of seem seamy or anything like that.
You knew the family was either bludgeoned or strangled, depending on the victim. But I don't feel like they over-sensationalized that. It was pretty respectful.
Yeah, and then the ghosts was just that's why people watch this show.
But that's why you get out of bed in the morning is to see shit like that.
Unsolved Mysteries
Samantha
exists as a show.
Her lazy ass is gonna be so disappointed that she missed this one. It's just quality.
I feel like I'm going to take a few steps back from slandering Samantha, but I will say that this was a good episode.
Maybe it's not funny if you don't know Samantha, but to me, Samantha just seems like someone who like really has her shit together and is like an adult. And, you know what I mean? Yeah, so for me to be like, what a lazy stack of shit. I can't believe.
I can't
believe she had to go to a work conference and get a recruit.
Yeah, she's off like furthering her career. What a dumbass.
What a dumbass. She seriously does like most of the work while I'm literally in my pajamas, and we started recording this at like 4 p.m. and I'm like, what a lazy bitch. Anyway, love you, Samantha. But you're gonna be sad you missed all these mustaches.
You will regret missing this episode because it's why you watch the show.
Yeah, sometimes we're watching, last week's was awful.
No, that's just brutal stuff. Like the dog one was terrible.
Oh God, why did you remind me about the dogs?
It's just like
sometimes I'm like, why did we start doing this?
Yeah.
This is, I don't want to watch this. But this week kind of reminds me like,
that's fine. That's what
this is it.
Sailing man ghosts, yeah.
Oh, come here, sailing man.
I think that would be a good, like, the hello sailor kind of trope.
Hello, sailing man.
Yeah. I think someone should try to get that going.
Why don't you sail my way?
That might be my favorite part of the episode.
Just the phrase sailing man. Okay, I do have a recommendation, but it's like so self-serving.
check out my Instagram, guys.
Well, yeah, you should. It's Everybody Likes Liz at Instagram, and you can see my artwork and stuff. Yeah, you should do that. Why are you laughing?
No, I didn't. Is that
Matt,
really?
Is that your recommendation?
Really?
Oh my God!
Yeah.
You're the sweetest. I can't believe it. Oh, he's just the best, you guys. No, my very self-serving recommendation is the Milwaukee Zine Fest coming up in April, on April 6th. And you should go. But why should you go? Because I'm going to be there. That's why. Yes, I'm doing the Milwaukee Zine Fest this year. I'm excited. I've never done it. It's at the Milwaukee Public Library, their central branch, on April 6th, 10:30 to 4:30. I'm going to be there shilling out zines, making the big bucks.
Nice.
Me and like 60 other people in the library. So I don't know if anybody in Milwaukee listens to the show. Come say hi. I think it's free to go, so you can just come bug me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. That's my recommendation. Good. Buy some zines. Do you have a recommendation? Oh, Sailing Man.
I mean, we mentioned the filmography of Pauly Shore. I think that's worth getting into.
I don't think anyone has recommended that in a long time.
Actually,
and I'm not putting it on the website.
Are you familiar with the website Cameo?
Vaguely.
Did we ever talk about that? So Cameo is a website.
Oh, where you hire celebrities to like
you can
shout
pay,
out
like,
to you.
$200 to a celebrity, and they'll make you a little video. And Pauly Shore is on there.
How much does he cost?
A lot, and I can't remember how much it is, but it's more than it should be.
The prices vary wildly. We weren't one night we're looking at all these famous people you can get to make a very short video to you, like Lance Bass or whatever.
Fascinating to see like where these sort of C-list celebrities value their time.
Yeah.
Like what they'll do for between 50 and because some people are a deal, man.
Yeah.
There's famous people for like $50, and then there's like not famous people for $500
because they just don't really want to do it.
Well, they don't want to do it, and they want to, they
want to act like they're more important than they are.
Exactly.
If anybody would like to buy me a video from drag queen Manila Luzon, who I know is on there, and apparently is from Cottage Grove, Minnesota.
There you go.
I would love a shout out. Thanks.
Hey.
Hook me up. That's another recommendation.
But Cameo.com has Pauly Shore on there, and I guess his videos are something to behold. Is
this your recommendation?
Just check them out. You can watch everybody's for free.
True.
You don't have to get one for yourself because they're all on the site. So also, if you're like trying to tell a personal secret to someone via
celebrity
by getting Ken Bone to say it for you.
Bad idea.
Don't do that because other people are able to see it. But if you go back, you can watch Pauly Shore's cameos, and he's so bad at it. And they give you you're given a script, and he just doesn't read the script. He does whatever he wants, and he's extremely insulting. And he does it in like a dark room where like can barely make him out, and it's something.
Drag queens like at least are in drag and stuff.
No, he's doing it very lazily. He's clearly
okay. This is not a recommendation. It sounds like he's terrible.
You should check out Pauly Shore's cameo. It's awesome.
I like that you came up with the worst recommendation of all time.
It's not going to take a lot of your time, and you might get a good laugh out of it.
Max, like, you know, it would be great if you went to the library and you checked out everything by Rush Limbaugh.
No, because that's not funny. I mean, that just sucks. But
that seems like an equal waste of time to me.
I don't know. If you want to see something that's really stupid, I think.
Fair enough.
I think Pauly Shore's cameo is worth checking out.
What were you actually going to recommend?
It came out a few months ago, but I'm a fan of the Toronto-based hardcore band Fucked Up, and they released a follow-up to their 2011 modern classic, David Comes to Life, and the new one is called A
Sailing Man? Sailing Man's Journey?
It's called Dose Your Dreams, and it is another sort of punk opera type thing that's very hard to describe, but it took a few listens, but I got just as into it, and so I would recommend both David Comes to Life and Dose Your Dreams, and they may not be for everyone, but they are great.
That's
so
fine.
Check them out.
We recommend stuff that's definitely not for everyone.
But also check out Pauly Shore's cameo.
Oh, okay.
And it's worth your time to go through and see what kind of nitwits are on there. And
actually, that I do highly recommend.
Literally can get Ken Bone, the red sweatered simpleton from the 2016 election, who couldn't make up his mind, to do this. I think he's like $35 too.
Maybe I'll get you that for your birthday.
There are some deals.
What would you want Ken Bone to say to you?
I don't know. But
do you think if I pay him $35, I could illegally tell him how he has to vote?
I doubt it, but you could maybe try.
Be like, okay, your message is me, Ken Bone, hereby swear to vote for this candidate in the upcoming election. Okay, Mac is like literally texting right now.
No, I'm going to see who else is on here.
Oh, I thought you were so done with this that you're like...
I'm finished. I got to send. Perez Hilton, $27.99 for Perez Hilton.
I do not want to hear anything from Perez Hilton.
All right. Andy Dick is $99.
What? That's way
deal.
too much.
Carson Kressley, $59. This is better than it. What? Chumley from the Pawn Stars.
Okay, now you've ruined your birthday present. Surprise! $65. It's a video from Chumley.
Ice-T is only $150.
Okay, that's kind of a steal.
That's a good price. That is good.
I would want him to say like a John Mulaney joke about him.
Who would you rather hear from, Lance Bass or Ice-T?
Personally, Ice-T.
Yeah, and Lance Bass is $199.
I can see that, though.
$49 more than Ice-T.
I bet he has a pretty loyal fan base.
Ice-T has been on television for like 20 years.
I feel like he inspires just
He was in New Jack
people.
City. I just watched New Jack City. It's good. There's another recommendation for you. You want to see the most 90s thing you've ever seen? Go watch New Jack City with Ice-T and Melvin Van Peebles and Judd Nelson and the like.
Oh, I was gonna guess Dennis Leary, but it was Judd Nelson.
Judd Nelson.
Okay, that is the most '90s thing.
A lot of people from The Office are on here. So if you liked the television, the American version of the Office,
you could get Angela to say, "I don't like you."
You can get, I can't remember, Meredith.
Oh, sure.
And,
who wouldn't want to hear from her?
Oh, what was that guy's name? Not Stanley. Stanley is on here, but
oh, the creepy guy?
The big guy with the bald guy.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about him. Don't write to me and tell me who the characters in The Office are. I could look it up. It's fine.
He played Brian. His name's Brian.
Okay, great.
His real name's Brian, too.
Whoa. That's some, star power right there.
Anyway.
It's like Charlie Sheen.
Okay, so sorry about that. But anyway, Cameo.com, the album, New Jack City.
Sadly, they do not sponsor
Pauly
us
Shore.
because no one will touch this show with a 10-foot pole. So, let's plug our stuff. If you, what was I even going to say? Oh my God. I can't do this without Samantha. Samantha, come back.
Do you have
come back.
Social media
yes,
stuff?
follow us on the social medias. We are Perhaps It's You on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a Facebook group that we update more than the thing. We also have a website, which is perhapsitsyou.com. if you have a paranormal story, we would really like to hear from you. We are collecting those for the end of the season. You can write to us at perhapsitsyouPodcast@gmail.com, or we do have a form on our website. You should rate us 5 stars on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Please remember that we only accept 5-star reviews. Thank you very much. And what else? What else did I say? Oh, you should sign up for Patreon. Our newest one was about ghost adventures. For as little as $1, you get a bonus episode every month, and we currently have 15 episodes, and you'll get all of them. So it's becoming a greater deal every single day. And then for $5, you also get a coloring sheet, and if you go up to $10 every quarter, you get some sort of gift. So it's a pretty great. Patreon.com/perhapsitsyou. And I feel like there was something else I'm supposed to say, and I don't know. But yeah, you check out my personal Instagram that Mac recommended. Everybody likes Liz. Yes.
It's good stuff.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. Go solve some mysteries, bitches. Mac, thanks for being here, unlike that deadbeat Samantha.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're really filling in.
I'm glad that I was a desired member of the cast and not
literally
the person who happened to be in the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Thanks for having me. No, I appreciate it.
Thanks for being here. Bye.
Bye.